The wind whispers, the metal sighs creaking in the distance, anonymous fragments that do not name me. When noise envelops the world, one searches for silence or clings to the remnants of meaning. There is no room for relief, only a series of vibrations. Resignation is the strength of will masked by powerlessness. It is a state of knowing that the concept of hope is unnecessary in the first place, rather than lamenting the absence of hope. To blend into the noise, not to resist its vibrations, but to become a being that beats as itself. To stop listening, to abandon listening, and surrender to the sound itself, which resonates more vividly than ever. Surrendering robustly amidst the noise. It is a weapon that penetrates countless noises and changes form in the innermost recesses of consciousness. Fragments of voices flying about in disorder, reverberations overlapping each other without meaning. The mouth that speaks of despair and the eyes that chant hope stand still at the edge of a world that is collapsing, intersecting with each other. Behind the silence, the boundary between the self and the other vibrates, shakes, and almost collapses, yet still tries to remain as meaning. When it disappears, it is like steel polished in chaos, soft but unbreakable, accepting all the noise, yet holding on to a core of consciousness that will never subside. It simply remains strong in the midst of silence. It is sharpened like a forged blade between the layers of noise. In this world where the friction of values echoes constantly, and the ghosts of countless words wander about in search of meaning, resignation is not a soft surrender, but rather exists as the core of a heated silence. The contour of the self wavers but does not collapse, because if one listens carefully, there is one sound that resonates beyond the clamour. It is not a voice of command, not a whisper of expectation, but simply the overwhelming existential resonance of the fact that it is there. The noise does not disappear. Rather, it multiplies and becomes a torrent of disorder. Moreover, the mere resignation is not buried in the torrent, but paradoxically rises up as a strong will. It is a determination that dwells in silence, an attitude that still resists the appearance of futility, and the final spark that refuses to disappear from existence. It is forged only in the midst of such contradictions, quietly letting go of the world, yet still holding on to the core of the world. It is not an ear-shattering scream, or a torrent of meaningless whispers, but an endless series of sound margins that have crept in between the folds of time. It is not an escape, not a surrender. Rather, it is the penetrating gaze of a person who does not lose sight of his or her axis, even amidst the torrent of noise. The noise eventually erodes the self and distorts the contours of thought. It is easy to be swept away, but surrendering to the ease of being swept away is not a dull passivity, but rather a steel silence that resists the incessant waves. To listen to the noise, but not to be clouded by it. To be in the middle of the noise, yet not to sink. Thus only those who stand strong know the will that resides behind resignation. The world is an accumulation of fragments. Countless voices collide, intersect, and interfere with each other, but no single voice plays a pure melody. Drowning in a sea of noise, it chooses to sink quietly. That of silence resembles the shape of resignation, but it is a letting go after knowing everything, an attitude that refuses to know everything, the clamour of reality that clings like a ringing in the ears, the reverberations of ticking clock hands, the tail-wagging engines of passing cars, the unspoken whispers and formless cries. All of these things are uniformly melded together in the depths of our consciousness to form a single crystallized resignation. But resignation is not weakness. It is proof of a will that remains unbroken amidst the noise. It is a quiet toughness that is given only to those who stand still in the midst of the incessant clamour like waves. If we listen carefully, what lies ahead is not noise, but a premonition of a melody that we ourselves must choose. The boundary between collapse and continuity is entangled in a web of minute vibrations, stubbornly refusing to determine its own form. Meanings are repeatedly generated and annihilated with the ego as a variable inside a cocoon woven of fragments of what was once called intention. They do not resonate with each other, but only interfere with each other to the extent of slightly disturbing each other's frequencies, and are broken down into a fluid disorder. It is not a deprivation of regularity in the ground state, but an undefined vibration itself that functions as resistance to the establishment of stable coordinates.